Hello everyone. So today something quite different. I usually say that, but this time I mean it really. This is Enchanted, a history of fantasy illustration, edited by Jesse Kowalski. Now this review is basically just I just want to get this book out there. It's such an impressive object just to have. I bought this in 2020, end of 2020. I almost said 2021 there. Really, this is what we're talking about. Really quite an astonishing bit of book. I've mostly been talking about fiction, just standard fiction, fantasy fiction. Of course I've talked about horror as well, Frankenstein and whatnot, some sort of weird fiction as well, weird fiction examples. But I want to try and branch out a little bit. I want to try and cover more things, just little. I might even go into just doing a couple of minutes of short story reviews that are sort of standalone. Maybe things like the yellow wallpaper and whatnot that aren't, for me, that weren't part of a collection. Anyway, various things down the line to come. We've always lived in the castle, Narcissus and Goldman perhaps, sort of medieval I suppose. Fantasties, Lord and the Mist, etc. But we're talking about non-fiction today. An illustration book, so not just any sort of non-fiction. I should say I also want to branch out to possibly philosophy and whatnot, but let's stick with this for now. I chose this because it's not only is it's a great book to have, it's really I think it's worth your time for the amount of the just incredible artistry here, and the fact that it's only about £20. I mean, this really is worth it for the amount of money that it costs. And it's just if you're interested in fantasy, if you're interested in the roots of fantasy and where, for everything from modern hyper stylized concept art, digital Photoshop concept art, all the way back to engravings, Assyrian engravings, biblical references, folklore and whatnot, legends. That covers everything. Now let me just read this quick blurb just to give you an idea, and of course I will be showing images throughout the book as well just to give you an idea of what's included. For hundreds of years, artists have been inspired by the imaginative potential of fantasy. Unlike science fiction, which is based on fact, fantasy presents an alternate reality, a universe where dragons breathe fire, angels battle demons, and magicians weave spells. Published to coincide with a major exhibition organised by the Norman Rockwell Museum, this handsome volume, indeed handsome, reveals how artists have brought to life mythology, fables and fairy tales, as well as modern epics like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. So it goes on to say that this covers everything from the old masters to the Victorian fairy painters to Golden Age illustrators, covers Frazetta, Boris, Vallejo, etc, etc. Everything from magazine illustration to board games and video games. And what I really enjoyed about this book is the fact that not only has it got this chronological aspect to it, there's actually essays here. Everything from the importance of fantasy, the birth of fantasy and its depiction in early illustration, the history of modern fantasy illustration, the future of fantasy illustration. So that's the sort of chronological viewpoint. What really fascinated me though was the contributors they brought in here to elucidate various aspects of fantasy. So we'll have everything from it's quite eclectic actually. We'll have everything from on the side of the angels, fantasy in an age of discovery. It's all about the 19th century and I guess sort of the fascination of Victorian people with fairy. We have quite a specific one here. We have Robert E. Howard, prose, poetry and action. So we'll have an entire sort of case study for Robert E. Howard if you're a fan of him. Conan and the like. Of re-enchantment and renewal, where art, archetype and fantasy meet. Really, I love that sort of stuff. I find myself sort of drawn to these sort of overarching fantastical themes. So we'll have archetypes and thresholds and what fantasy means. We'll have heroes and the monomyth of Joseph Campbell, etc. And then real and imagined, we'll have another case study, real and imagined, fantastical Rockwell. So of course this book was a sort of tie-in to an exhibition for the Norman Rockwell Museum. So of course we'll have to have a case study for Norman Rockwell. And now let's just look at this. I'm going to try and fit these in the frame. I'm going to take the cover off first. It's a lot easier to handle. This is a more tactile review than usual. Here we go. So the cover, I'm going to, so here's the cover, the first part of it. So these illustrations are very large scale. Just have a look at this. I've got Bouguereau, so you know it's good. Incredible rendering there by Bouguereau. We have quotes from Ursula K. Le Guin. We have got it's just what I love about this is that it covers so much of the emergence of archetypes in religion. We've got old biblical engravings. Of course, I can't go into too much detail here. I'm struggling not to pick out little bits here and there. The evolving themes within fantasy art and literature. This talks a lot about comparative mythology, surprisingly in depth. For it's not just, I should say, the selling point about this is not just a pop-up book or a picture book. It covers quite a lot here. We're talking about Confucianism, Taoism, monotheistic Judaism. We're talking about we've got all the greats. We've got Albrecht Dürer. We've even got busts and vessels and old Assyrian art. We've got Hercules here and sort of bronze sculpture. It's really it covers everything from comparative mythology to anthropology to, I guess, even all sorts of sociological aspects, I suppose. Abrahamic religions. We've got manuscripts, all the sort of iconography of the angels and how, of course, angels with their wings and angels with their swords sort of harkens. We can see the connections there with paladins and fantasy and all sorts of holy imagery. We've got Hieronymus Bosch. We have the city of Ur. We've got tablets and engravings. Really, it sort of makes me gleeful just looking through this because there really is so much here. We've got all these sort of manuscripts and historical documents. Just incredible, really. And just look at these Arthur Rackham illustrations here. Full colour, very impressive. It covers everything you could possibly want. We've even got sort of, I believe these are some illustrations for sort of plates for magazines and whatnot. Just sort of illustrations here. It covers everything you could want, really. Don't know if that fits in the page there, but all sorts of styles. I think this really is worth your time. Some of the art is just incredible. We've got Boris Vallejo here. We're getting into the heroic. I'm just skipping through this, just having fun looking at it, really. We've got some of the more heroic imagery here. Of course, all the Frank Frazetta inspired work. The classic sort of Conan the Barbarian style. I mean, there are actually illustrations, full colour illustrations on every single page, essentially. And I'm finding that there's not a single, and we've got full comic art as well. I mean, hopefully the enthusiasm is coming through here. I've not actually looked at this in a while. Again, I have an unfortunate habit of, I read a book, get really into it, and then I just, sometimes even when it's an art book, I've got quite a few art books, John Howe, Alan Lee, various, I've got 3 medieval art books, all sorts, but I probably should look into these more than I do. Got everything from Hellboy concept art, and again compare Hellboy concept art to biblical manuscripts. it covers animation as well, some of the earliest animation. Posters for heavy metal. I mean, this is just impressive. Got movie posters for Dracula, and we're not even halfway through, and we've got a whole section on gaming here. Some very sort of charming old school art for D&D. So yeah, this really is just astonishing. This, I think the creators of this, they definitely wanted it to be a comprehensive look at fantasy art. I mean, here we have we've got Bastien de Harm here, which is one of my favourite painters as well. Found him at ArtStation. So there's a lot of it goes from everything from the old masters to modern contemporary artists. I've got some of these, as you can tell, it's sort of Photoshop style. I'll say modern, crisp, refined. It's really impressive just to see. There's even Magic the Gathering examples, and here we are in the modern fantasy illustration section. We have the Lich King, and we've got Onyxia, if you're interested in World of Warcraft. Hopefully those are sort of picking up on the camera. There's a lot here. Future fantasy illustration. Unfortunately, I just have to say one gripe for this book is that no Alan Lee. If I can remember correctly, there's no Alan Lee. There is Brian Froud as well, a friend of and colleague of Alan Lee. I'm not such a fan of Brian Lee as I am a fan of Alan Lee. Alan Lee's my favourite painter. I mean, there really is just so much here. I mean, look at this. It's about a quarter to go, and we're just got this. It's full colour illustrations here, just incredible. Glossy paper, high quality paper. And I believe Brom is in here as well. Brom's another of my favourite painters. I mean, this really is just incredible. And throughout, of course, we've got the history of all these. We've got everything from photography and the Victorian fascination with fairy, kitsch and all sorts of stuff we've got. And of course, near the end we have the Rockwell section. I wasn't actually a fan of Rockwell. Then I saw his work, more of his work, and he has some really quite charming stuff. Obviously it's sort of American idealism. I particularly like this one. It's a boy reading adventure story. A boy and his dog imagining himself being a knight. So yes, hopefully you can get the idea here. A lot in here. I mean, it's a heavy, substantial book. A lot here. So that was Enchanted, a history of fantasy illustration. I was tempted to read various excerpts and try and give you an overview of how the history is charted, but I definitely suggest picking this book up if you couldn't tell already. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully you enjoyed the imagery as well and the artistry involved. So till next time, I'm not sure what I'll cover next. Possibly We Have Always Lived in the Castle. So again, that's been Olden Word Books. Thanks for watching.